if I could invite Father Fadi Diab, who's, as I said earlier, rector of St Andrew's Church in Rallamah, but also chair of the Holy Land Committee, which is a volunteer committee that guides our work in the Holy Land. Father Fadi, over to you.
Thank you, Brendan. It's really a great pleasure to join this symposium with all of you, and I'm very glad to see familiar faces in the screen. I'd like to recognize the presence of the primate of the Anglican Church in Canada, Archbishop Linda Nichols, who's in the group, and many other friends. Thank you for joining. I think the reason you're here is that because you care, and we understand this very well. And I'd like to thank my colleague, Reverend Munder, for the introduction. And I think he just mentioned most of the important points that we need to convey in this session. In the 5-10 minutes, I'd like just to give you a kind of a picture of the situation on the ground, especially when it comes to the Christian community. You know that Christianity in the Holy Land dropped from around 17 to 19% at the beginning of the 20th century to less than 1% in the Palestinian occupied territories. And you know that today in Gaza there are less than 1,000 Christians. And as Munder mentioned, that we pray and hope that the Christian presence in Gaza continues even after the war, even though we already know that most of the families in Gaza have already applied for immigration, and they're just waiting to receive a confirmation of their application. And that is also true in the West Bank, where the situation is even uncovered by the media because of the focus on Gaza, which allowed the Israeli forces to go into many cities and towns on a daily basis, arresting people, targeting civilians, and destroying as they could, while the media is focusing on Gaza. Since October 7th, more than 500,000 Palestinian workers in the West Bank lost their jobs, either because they were not able anymore to go into their work in Israel, since Israel suspended all work permits, or because they work in the hospitality and pilgrimage industry, especially the cities of Bethlehem and the vicinity of Bethlehem. So the war left many people, including many Christians, without work and without income, putting much pressure on the church to support these families. There is a huge feeling of abandon by the international community, including the Christian community in the West. Many Christians today, when we talk, with the parishioners and friends around, many of them are really depressed, not only because of the war, the devastation of the war, but also because they feel neglected by the international community, by the human rights organizations, by the United Nations, and of course by the Christian church in the West. We know that there have been really prophetic voices within the churches, but not on a larger scale that we wished to see and hear. So that left the community really in despair. And just today, I met a couple who have already applied to immigrate to Canada with their children. And we keep this, hearing this rhetoric and discourse from the community about the need of leaving and immigrating to other places. So when we hear these stories, it tells you how much people are now despair to leave, and how desperate they are to leave, and how despair they feel. I tell you, the pictures and the stories we receive from Gaza are horrible. I mean, no human mind can imagine. And I know that you don't get these pictures in the West through the Western media outlet. But if you just follow Facebook, and if you're in Palestine and see the images, the children, the elderly, the devastation situation of around 2 million Palestinians now stuck in an area smaller than Ramallah, now in Gaza, without or with limited amount of food and medical supplies. I don't think we could have imagined something to happen in the 21st century. I mean, that is something you could imagine during the World War, First or Second World War. It's something we read about in books of history, but we couldn't imagine with the advancement of ethics and human rights and technology to see what has been done to the Palestinians in the 21st century. So that left the Christian community in particular very sad, very depressed, devastated. And that is why one of the things we're trying to do is to create programs for post-traumatic stress, because most of the Palestinian community now do experience post-traumatic stress. I want to tell you about Fadi. Fadi is 6 years old, and a parishioner in our Sunday school who wakes up almost every night dreaming of soldiers getting into his school. I mean, when the parents shared that news with me, this is a 6-year-old child who just dreams of playing in football or basketball or video games, and what he dreams is soldiers invading his school and arresting his classmates. I mean, this is something that will continue to haunt the Palestinian community for a long time. These traumas won't, leave, and after even the war would stop. And that is why we've been pleading for the international community. We've been asking our brothers and sisters around the world to put more pressure on their governments to stop this horrendous war, unjust war. There is and even evil war that continues to kill innocent people, not militants, not armies, but innocent people, children and women. And one of the things that it's good for us to share is that we lost sense of numbers. Like every day we hear 100 persons, 200 persons, 300 persons, 700 persons, as if these people are numbers. I mean, these people are not numbers. They're living beings created by the image of God. This is a sacred life that, as a church, we are called to protect and sustain. And just to hear the numbers of, this morning, 42 people were killed just this morning. I mean, these are, when we look at them, these are parents. These are fathers and mothers, grandfathers and grandmothers, students, teachers, nurses, doctors. They have children and grandchildren. These are not numbers, but unfortunately, what we have been witnessing is that the world is not listening. Unfortunately, even the church on a leadership level is not listening, and we're left only abandoned by the international community. But we won't lose faith in a living and loving God who continues to be with the oppressed, marginalized, and outcast, with the forgotten among us. And that is why we continue to carry our mission, because we believe in Jesus Christ, who came to our land to be with those marginalized by the powerful in society. I'll stop here because we want to give more time to questions. And if something was not covered in both Munder's and mine presentation, we were very happy to respond to these concerns. Thank you very much.